Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Poetry, Kalamazoo, Michigan's premier wrestling and poetry podcast. This week, I want to feature a history that I stumbled upon while surfing the web for facts about wrestling. Do any of you remember episode 3, which featured poet Stella Corso, and it had the wrestling topic of holds? Well, if you don't remember or you have not yet listened to it, in the episode, I list a number of wrestling holds. When I came to the wrestling hold of the mandible claw, I mentioned that it was invented by Sam Sheppard and that there was a story there. I should mention this is not Sam Sheppard, the playwright. This is Sam Sheppard, the former surgeon. Today is the day that I talk about that story. This is Wrestling with Poetry's Murder Ballad episode. But first I want to talk about the fact of the mandible claw. The mandible claw is when the wrestler puts their middle and ring finger into the opponent's mouth, specifically under the tongue, and jabbing into the soft tissue found at the bottom of the mouth. The thumb of the same hand of the guy who's putting his hand in the mouth, that is placed under the jaw, and the pressure is applied downward with the middle and the ring finger, while the thumb forces the jaw upwards, which supposedly compresses the nerves in the jaw and renders the opponent's jaw paralyzed. It's very gnarly to see. And that is a finisher, folks. Yes, that's like submission hold. Sam Sheppard was the man who developed this hold. But where did he come from and who was he? Sam was a surgeon. He lived in Ohio with his son Chip and his pregnant wife Marilyn until on July 3rd, 1954, when everything changed. Well, on that day in 1954, Sam and Marilyn were entertaining guests because it was a 4th of July weekend. After the guests went home, Sam and Marilyn watched the movie The Strange Holiday. While Sam drifted off to sleep, Marilyn went upstairs to the bedroom. In the early morning of July 4th, Sam was awakened by the screaming of his wife. He ran upstairs to her. She had been beaten to death. He saw a figure in white in the room with her. The figure smacked Sam on the back of the head, and this dazed him. However, he was still able to check on his son Chip, who was okay and miraculously slept through this whole incredibly violent undertaking. And then Sam set off in pursuit of the figure in white. Sam ended up chasing the figure down to the beach of their lake house. The two would exchange blows again at the shore. Sam claimed to have been left in the water while this mysterious figure escaped. Later, the cops were called to investigate, and they were instantly suspicious of Sam, the husband. The cops thought that the burglary that accompanied the murder was staged. By July 5th, this murder dominated all the Cleveland newspapers. It had become a national sensation overnight. The cops continued to question Sam, who was dazed and seemed just very fishy. Significantly, Sam was caught in a lie. He was having an affair with a 24-year-old woman who worked in the lab of his hospital. Initially, he denied that he was having the affair, but the young woman, she admitted to it. The cops publicly called him a bald-faced liar. There were editorials in Cleveland newspapers saying to lock the guy up. There seemed to have been a very mob-like atmosphere around this, probably because Marilyn was pregnant when she died. Sam Sheppard was brought to trial in November of 1954. The trial ended on December 21st with the verdict of guilty. This will later be overturned, but not before Sheppard spends 10 years in prison. When he got out of prison, his first idea was to return to being a surgeon. But unfortunately, while being incarcerated, he had become dependent on alcohol. So his surgery skills were impaired, to say the least. And he ended up killing people. He nicked an artery in one case, and in another, his unsteady work led to a patient dying of internal bleeding. So, his surgery skills in steep decline. He was being sued for malpractice. He loses his license. His drinking becomes ever worse. He couldn't do surgery, so what did he do? Well, he became a professional wrestler. He debuted in 1969 at the age of 45, and his persona was Killer Sam Sheppard. If I understand it correctly, he got into wrestling because his young girlfriend's father was a wrestler and a wrestling manager. So he had somebody on the inside who could show him the ropes. He had about 40 matches before dying of a wet brain or vernix encephalopathy in 1970. Sam's son Chip is still trying to clear his father's name. In pop culture, you might recognize this case from the 1992 movie The Fugitive, which is based on this exact drama. Previously in the 60s, there was also a television show entitled The Fugitive, which lasted for 3 seasons and featured Ron Howard's younger brother, child actor. Don't remember his name. There's actually a long list of television shows based on this case, if you check out the Wikipedia page for Sam Sheppard. That's all I want to say. I kind of thought it would be interesting to tell you about this crazy originator of the mandible claw. You really never know what people go through. I hope you enjoyed that prosaic murder ballad of 1954 to 1970. If nothing else, I think it reminds us to be grateful that we are not being accused of murder and hounded. And it's also a good reminder not to overdo it with alcohol. Events happening in this area. On July 27th, which is a Thursday, Satellite Records will be holding an open mic. This will be from 5:30 to 6:30, and the host will be Bunny Villaire. This is also a good place to share your poetry, your music, or even your prose. Satellite Records is located at 808 Southwest Nedge Avenue in beautiful Kalamazoo, Michigan. Wrestling events. Independence Pro Wrestling returns to Ruggers Up and Under in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And they'll be presenting a show of wrestlers on Saturday, August 12th. And the name of the event is Warzone. The doors open at 5 and it's all ages. Now for the bright spot of poetry. Brad Tice is the author of 2 books of poetry, Rare Earth, which was named the winner of the 2011 Many Voices Project and a 2014 Debulitzer finalist, and What the Night Numbered, winner of the 2014 Trio Award. His poetry and fiction have appeared in such periodicals as The Atlantic Monthly, North American Review, The American Scholar, Epic, as well as the Best American Short Stories, 2008. His poetry was also selected as the winner of Prairie Schooner's 2009 Edward Stanley Award. He currently teaches at Nebraska Wesleyan University in Lincoln, Nebraska. Let's hear from Brad.
Tailed. His shadow stays far back and never touches light. Always a street corner behind, in the threshold of a door, the skirted cover of the roofs. Bond thinks of him as his past catching up, not sins exactly, but colors of a memory fading, like pictures on a movie screen. Like the way, as a child, he had walked into rooms where his father had been and scented the air of his passing, cigar smoke, heated wool. He hears his companion's step, bottle jostled on the stones. Bond recalls a field in the south of Spain where villagers claim a man could stand and hear the Virgin whisper his name, that this meant the blessing of death was close. Closer to his hand now is the gun. Closer to his body is the man pursuing, figures in the houses moving in and out of the squares of their purchased warmth. There, in his mind, is the field he's never walked, flowers griming his pant leg with saffron, the heat at his back. There he is waiting for the word to come, grace to settle inside him, settle him. Now, Bond spins, the known world realigning, levels his gun at nothing.
Brad, that was amazing. Thank you all out there for listening to this very special episode of Wrestling with Poetry. Please subscribe or like it if you like it. And you can also participate by sending in your questions to wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com. This is Ish Klein wishing you safety and health. Until next week.